Hello and welcome everyone to today's WorkSafe Tasmania month webinar, Virtual Reality and its Application for Assisting Injured Workers with Chronic Pain. I'm Stephanie from WorkSafe Tasmania. WorkSafe Tasmania month is an initiative funded by the Work Cover Tasmania Board. Before we start, please take a moment to read the following slide about information received today. To interact with today's webinar and ask questions of today's presenter, please use the questions window in your control panel to type and submit your questions at any time during today's presentation. Questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Today's webinar is also being recorded. It is now my pleasure to introduce your presenter from APM WorkCare, Hayley Buckhorn. Hayley is a highly experienced exercise psychologist who has worked in clinical settings and has spent over 8 years in personal injury insurance. Hayley is responsible for driving and managing the delivery of high quality care and rehabilitation provider services to APM WorkCare's customers nationally throughout its branch network. Hayley is also responsible for customer reporting, including providing analysis of data, trends and outcomes, and identifying ongoing continuous improvement initiatives. Welcome, Hayley.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you to WorkSafe Tasmania for having me as part of WorkSafe Tasmania month. And thank you everybody for dialing in. Really excited to talk to you today about virtual reality and how this can be used for pain management in a population with chronic pain. I only have half an hour today and I'm keen to get through as much content as possible, so I'm going to jump right in. But as Stephanie said, please feel free to pop any questions you might have in the chat, and we'll definitely go through those at the end. So why am I here today to talk about chronic pain and the application of virtual reality? So unfortunately, about 1 in 5 people live with some kind of chronic pain, which is pain that lasts longer than 12 weeks. The most common is persistent or chronic back pain. About 1 in 10 people are considered to have high impact persistent pain, which means that their persistent pain impacts their ability to work, to study, to socialise and to contribute to society. So what we'll be speaking about here is more geared to people who are impacted in their ability to be able to work. So persistent pain also impacts lives. The global burden of disease study involves more than 7,000 researchers in over 156 countries. They collect and analyse data on premature death and disability from more than 350 diseases across more than 150 countries. They have said from their research that chronic pain exerts the biggest burden of any health condition in terms of years lived with a disability. The economic burden of persistent pain is massive. In some countries, persistent pain costs the economy more than cancer and diabetes combined. Having persistent pain also seems to elevate an individual's risk of other conditions such as development of cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, stroke, depression, suicide, opioid addiction, and it elevates the risk of death by any cause between 10 and 50%. So this population of people we're talking about are in a really high risk category, and so we really want to explore all of the avenues of support that we can offer them to help them to be able to live a more healthy and productive life, and in this instance that we're talking about today, to be able to re-engage in the workforce and be able to stay engaged in the workforce as well. So what is it about pain? So there have been tens of thousands of scientific articles that have been released on pain that have over the last 30 years. When you put all of them together, they start to paint a really nice picture, which is outlined here. So the modern understanding of pain emphasises that we have a really important there is a really important protective mechanism of pain. In the first slide here, you're able to see that I've just realised that my mouse moves as well. You're able to see that there is a threshold for when tissue damage occurs, so that's when an injury will occur. And then there is also pain when that will occur before the tissue damage will occur. So if any of you have ever played any sports before or ever got back into exercise, you might find that you have done something and you've experienced a little bit of pain, but then with time and potentially with some removal from that activity, that pain goes away. And in those instances, what's happened is you've triggered that pain threshold, but you haven't yet triggered the threshold where the tissues have actually become damaged. So our bodies are made to experience pain, and it's a protective mechanism that tells us what we should and shouldn't be doing. What happens though is after we've had an injury, so moving over to the right-hand side, the threshold at which the pain happens is lowered, but also the threshold with which tissue damage happens is lowered as well. But you'll also see that the gap between those two there starts to widen. So we know that people with chronic pain start to experience pain at a lesser threshold, so they do less and still experience the same amount of pain, and they are potentially also more likely to damage their tissues further as well. So this is really important. This is a really important concept for somebody with chronic pain to be able to understand, because there are also factors in which they can modulate this experience of pain. Now, why are we talking about the need for them to be able to modulate this experience of pain? I'm just waiting for the slide to jump across to the next one. There we go. So why is it important for an individual to have an understanding of what pain is? And so there is a really cool study that analysed people who fit into this chronic pain basket. And so what they did was, at the beginning of the study, they analysed what somebody's percentage of maximum pain that they were experiencing was. And we can see here there was two different groups. So there was the blue group and then there was the red group. And so the blue group, what happened with them is that they were given really great pain education. So they were able to understand what pain is, how they're able to work and interact with their pain levels. And what they did and what they saw over time was that over 12 months, these individuals in the blue who had a really good understanding of what pain was, their percentage of pain that they experienced over the course of 12 months significantly reduced. The group in the red, they didn't have a good understanding of what pain was, therefore weren't able to put into practice some self-management strategies to better modulate their pain, and their pain experience namely remained the same and in some instances increased. So what this tells us is that it's really important for anybody who is going through a chronic pain experience to have a really good understanding of what pain is, because their understanding of pain directly impacts how much pain they experience themselves as well. So why are we looking at utilising virtual reality? Because whilst I've said that it's really important for an individual to have a really good understanding of pain and to be able to understand what they can do to help manage their pain experience better, pain is a really complex topic to be able to speak about. And if any of you who are on the line have ever worked with anybody who's gone through a pain program, or has seen a specialist pain physiotherapist, or has gone to see a specialist who's spoken to them about their pain, a lot of the time when we try to convey this topic about chronic pain and the implications of our body systems and how our brain is responsible for controlling the pain outputs, a lot of the time patients walk away feeling like they've been told that the pain is all in their head, and that is not the reality that we're trying to convey to them. But because we're trying to talk about really complex neurobiological and neuropsychosocial topics with somebody who doesn't have that same background and understanding as somebody who's a treating practitioner does, they can walk away feeling really disgruntled and sometimes feeling like they've not been heard, which further exacerbates the point I was making previously about them having a really good understanding of pain. So the reason why we utilize the virtual reality environment is it creates this immersive environment where individuals can see, they can hear, they can feel the topics that are being discussed. And so it's different from traditional methods of learning in that they get to really interact and get to learn more, as well as feeling and being able to touch and really visualize the topics that are being explained to them. So the platform that we have been using is the Reality Health platform, and this has been designed by Reality Health alongside Professor Lorimer Moseley. If anybody knows anything about chronic pain, you'll know that Lorimer Moseley is one of the foremost leading researchers in this space, and so he's been involved in the educational elements of this program, and being able to translate the language, as I said, that is very difficult for somebody who doesn't have an allied health background or any kind of medical backgrounds to really be able to understand and grasp the topics that are being discussed. So with the program, it's a combination of putting somebody into the headset and then running them through specific modules. So the aim is to be able to get somebody to have an increased understanding of what pain is, how the body controls our pain outputs, but then also being able to apply that to themselves as well. So being able to better understand how their injury occurred, the tissues that were involved, where are they at in their stage of healing, and how can they then apply these topics that they've been talking about to their own life. So looking at the program itself and who would benefit, the key considerations to look at is somebody needs to be 12 weeks post physical injury, and that's, as I was talking to before, we're really looking at that chronic pain cohort. So not the people who are going to be off work for a week or two and then be able to return. We're looking at people who are going to be with their injury for at least 12 weeks period of time. We're also looking for people who have a certified capacity of less than 15 hours a week, and that's a really good indication that if somebody has been off work for 3 months, so as I said, those 12 weeks, and they're still at less than half of their regular capacity, this is a really good indication that we need to bring up their learning and education of pain. If there's any identified psychosocial flags, which is something I'll talk to you a little bit further in a minute, there's also some other really good key considerations to think about if you're ever looking at somebody with chronic pain. The other considerations are also opioid usage and somebody who's had multiple imaging scans such as CTs and MRIs. If anybody doesn't know, there's a really interesting amount of research that's come out about MRI scans that have been done on the backs. So they've just picked out 100 people. Some people have had pathology, some people haven't. And what they've found is that they were able to find things wrong on an MRI, but the person didn't have any pain at all. So MRI scans are great when we're looking for a specific pathology, but they can also be a detriment as well, because once somebody sees that there's something wrong in a scan, we know that they can often experience more pain after that as well. So what does the program itself actually look like? So the program's designed to be short and sharp. So as I said, it's really about education and getting somebody to have a really good understanding of what pain is, what can they do to help modulate their own experience, and then putting it into practice. So the VR program is delivered within the person's home. This is a really important point as well, because we really want the person to be comfortable and in an environment where they're ready to learn and be able to apply their learnings as well. So we have one of our consultants go out and deliver the education in their home. So 6 sessions across 6 weeks. We aim to build as much functional capacity in the home environment as well. So a lot of the time you'll see in our initial reporting and at the end as well, we talk a lot about the activities of daily living, or ADLs, and we really want to increase somebody's capacity to be able to do those activities by themselves, because we know there's a really good correlation between being independent in the home and being able to successfully return to work. We'll also do measurements that are kind of lead indicators about somebody's capacity to return to work. So these include things like resilience, motivation, confidence, as well as their perception of their injury and their pain as well. One of the questions we asked during the initial assessment is we actually asked the individual to give us their definition of what pain is, because it's a really great starting point to be able to open up this discussion about pain, and for us to be able to better target the education that we need to deliver as well. We then come back at the end and we re-measure all of these things as well to be able to demonstrate the hopeful improvements that we've seen. We also use some specific outcome measures that are listed there. We have a report that's delivered at the end of the program as well, which is really important for future planning. We always aim that at the end of our program to do a collaborative case conference with a GP involved and any other stakeholders that might also be involved in this person's ongoing recovery, because as I said, it's a really short, sharp 6-week intervention. We want to make sure that the plan moving forward is going to incorporate the learnings from the program and be able to continue to put them into practice, because we don't want them to have 6 weeks of really great education and then after that they start to lose those points and they kind of go back off track again. apologise. I seem to be a little bit slow with being able to switch to the next slide. So how this all works and what to expect if you were referring somebody into this program. So when a referral comes through, oh, I apologise, now I've gone one too far. When a referral comes through, there is an initial triage phone call to make sure that the person's suitable for the program and that the service provision is really going to deliver benefit. Because we're talking about virtual reality and putting somebody into a headset, there's also some safety considerations that we need to look at as well. We need to make sure that the person is able to understand English and be able to interpret it. At this stage, all of the education components through the virtual reality headset are only delivered in English. So somebody does need to have a good understanding of English to really be able to reap the reward and benefit of it. There are also some other safety elements too. We need to look at if anybody has any problems with their vision, if they have a fear of heights, if they experience anything like vertigo or dizziness. There are also some mental health conditions that we need to be aware of. In any of those instances where those things might be present, for that particular individual, we'll always look at getting treating practitioner sign-off before we look at putting them in a headset. So once we've determined that the person is appropriate to engage in the program, we'll then move into the assessment phase. As I said before, we do a variety of outcome measures because we really do want to be able to show that the program and the education that's being delivered is helping set this person up for success into the future. We also set goals in collaboration with the individual as well that we're able to measure throughout the course of the program. The program itself, as I said, is 6 sessions delivered over 6 weeks. There are 4 particular modules that are delivered as part of the program. The first one is understanding pain. The second one is about retraining the body and the brain. And then the last, there's 2 and 3. And then the last one is about the rehab module. So we actually get somebody to move and interact with the virtual reality environment. One of the things that's really surprising that we often find as part of the delivery of those rehab modules in particular, when we're talking to somebody, and let's use an example of a lower back injury, when we talk to somebody about their ability to move and interact with their environment, they'll generally demonstrate very guarded movements and inability to kind of flex their back or be able to bend down and pick something up. That is because of that protective mechanism of pain. And if you think back to a few slides ago now where I showed the 2 mountains, their pain threshold has been lowered. So they're trying to protect themselves by these guarding movements. Really interestingly, when we put them into the virtual reality environment and they lose the concept of the environment around them and they're instead immersed in this virtual reality environment, we more often than not see people move more freely. We see greater range of movement. And that's not to say that we're trying to trick somebody or that they're able to do anything more. It's just showing the importance of this pain education being delivered appropriately. And we often will video somebody as well. We'll ask them to do the movement in real world environment and then ask them to do the movement in the virtual reality environment, and being able to show them that and talk to them about the fact that they didn't experience any increase in pain, but look at what their body was able to do instead of what it isn't able to do is a really great way that we can open up this conversation further. With the modules themselves, they're generally about 10 to 15 minutes in length, but each of the sessions we have with the individuals range to about an hour long. The reason why is that we want to really talk about, we want the education component to be delivered via virtual reality, but then we want to take that learning and we want to apply it into their real life. So the rest of those sessions really is about further elaborating on the topic and opening up a discussion with the individual, and then being able to work through them in terms of setting goals over the next week between our next session of how they're going to be able to implement that learning into their daily life ongoing. At the conclusion of the program, we redo all of the outcome measures that we've done at the start. We will also do a mini functional assessment where we really get an understanding of what is this person's physical capacity and is that reflected in their medical certificate? Is it reflected in the duties that they're being able to perform at work? And if there's any discrepancies there, that's where we really aim to have that collaborative case conference with all of the other stakeholders involved to be able to say, we've been able to demonstrate this, the person is comfortable and feels safe in being able to do these movements. So can we now look at incorporating them into the return to work plan to hopefully bolster this person's capacity and be able to re-engage with work safely? I spoke earlier about the psychosocial impacts that have an impact on recovery, and I think it's really important to highlight these within the chronic pain population that we're talking about here, because we know that these become even more important, especially when somebody has spent a significant amount of time away from work. We know that these impacts have a significant impact on the ability to return to work successfully. That's really well documented and researched. We also know that two people who have the exact same diagnosis can go on very different recovery trajectories, and especially return to work trajectories, and they are often impacted by these psychosocial elements. So as part of our engagement with each individual, whether that be within this particular chronic pain program or anybody else who's referred to APM Work Care, we have our own psychosocial measurement tool, which is called the APM IQ Life Index, which gives us a rating that's able to track how much of an impact these psychosocial factors are having on somebody's ability to recover and thereafter be able to return to work. Just really interesting for everyone here as well. I'm going to skip ahead a couple because I'm recognizing very quickly I'm running out of time. We found that the top three topics within these psychosocial factors that tend to impact recovery and return to work the most are social engagement, financial security, and low mood and isolation. So they're things that if we see them as part of our initial assessment, we'll aim to address them throughout our engagement as well. So why is functional health literacy and why is understanding of pain so important? It's because we want to be able to provide care in line with value-based care, where injured workers are going to be able to enjoy a better quality of life. We want to act in line with the health benefits of good work statement and be able to help people return to work quicker. We want everyone to have more positive experience of the workers' compensation system and be able to achieve all of the goals. We also want workers to be able to become scheme independent. So we want them to have a better understanding of pain so that they can do more within their personal life that will then flow through to their ability to return to work, hopefully be able to become more independent from the scheme and less reliant on those payments. We then know that there are further impacts from both the scheme's perspective, but as well as from the employer's perspective as well. So the details of the program, and just kind of looping back around again, it is a 9-hour program which is completed over 6 weeks. There is assessment and reporting completed at the beginning and at the end of the program. It's utilising a VR headset with the pain management software that we utilise through Reality Health. We review activities of daily living, and we aim to build as much capacity into this program through the use of education. We are identifying these psychosocial barriers that we know have such a huge impact on somebody's ability to recover successfully and be able to return to work, and mitigate risks throughout that as well. At the conclusion of the program, we conduct a functional assessment, which we hope will inform the person's ongoing and future care. And then we aim to have a medical case conference at the conclusion as well, to make sure that everybody who isn't going to be involved in the injured person's ongoing care is aware of what has been delivered and what the person understands, so that those goals and the actions are able to be taken and then moved through into the future. And just really quickly, before I open up for questions, I just wanted to include as well a little about what we've learnt so far from the individuals who've gone through the program. So we've been able to demonstrate results that are shown to be comparable and potentially also exceed those that have been delivered via traditional pain management programs. So where you've sent somebody off, they've had a really complex assessment, and then they've potentially seen a pain management program ongoing. It's really great to see that this intervention, which is a lot lower impact on the person, is able to have comparable results. We've seen improvements in both the pain self-efficacy questionnaire, which is a questionnaire that's delivered to get a person's understanding of what they know about pain, how do they interact and work with their pain, as well as the APM IQ Life Index. So that's the psychosocial risks tool. So we've seen improvements in both of those measures from the start to the end of the program. We've seen an increase in individuals' ability to be independent in their activities of daily living. And we've seen an increase in certified capacity and re-engagement in both job seeking as well as return to work activities with the same employer. So far so good. We're hoping to continue to build on that data set and be able to release more concrete information into the future. So with 5 minutes to go, I'm going to conclude my rapid fire information dump, but also do want to say that if anybody had any further queries or would like to discuss anything that I've spoken about here in further detail, please don't hesitate to reach out to Stephanie, who said that she's happy to pass along my contact details. Love answering questions. So thank you all.
All right, thank you, Hayley, for your presentation. So if anyone does have any questions for Hayley, please use the questions window on your control panel, and Hayley will provide a response. So to start, Hayley, is APM's VR program recognised by insurers?
Yes, it is. And so we've been using it in a swathe of insurance markets across the country, and we've already received referrals down in Tasmania as well. So yes, it is.
All right, thank you. And if anyone does want to rewatch today's webinar or any webinars that we have run during WorkSafe month over the last couple of weeks, please head to worksafe.tas.gov.au towards the end of October to rewatch those webinars. Hayley, can someone with a chronic illness that has chronic pain but not relating to an injury use this program?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually got a call yesterday about a referral for somebody who's got persistent pain after cancer treatment. And I guess it's really important to kind of go back to the basics of the program in that we're really just wanting somebody to understand what pain is better and how there is a really big interplay between our biological system, so our tissue system, but then also our neurological system as well, and that interaction can be impacted by a lot of things. Somebody's pain experience, we know that people can experience an increase in pain when they've had poor sleep, when they've been in a really stressful environment, or when there's been, maybe their nutrition hasn't been as good. So there are really modifiable ways that we can impact somebody's pain experience. So absolutely, it doesn't necessarily have to be from a tissue related injury itself.
All right, thanks. Can you tell us if there are any costs involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think on the second last slide, so our program itself is 9 hours of servicing. So that's at 9 hours at the standard rate that we are looking at. If we are going out to deliver it in somebody's home, there's also a travel charge associated with that as well. But otherwise, we have the headset and we take that with us when we're integrating, when we're interacting with the client themselves. So we're not actually giving them a headset themselves, we're utilising ours when we're in the session with them.
All right, thanks. Is a doctor's referral required?
No, it's not required, but as I said, when we're doing the initial triage phone call to be able to look at the referral that's come through, if there are any flags within that that we'll want to be aware of and potentially want to get doctor's input, whoever the allied health professional is that's taking on that referral will liaise directly with the doctor to communicate that with them.
All right, thanks. Can the program be used at home on a personal headset?
It can be. We would just go through the process of downloading the software for them. But yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't do that. And especially if somebody is comfortable utilising their own headset and interacting with the virtual environment, then we would love to do that as well. Anything we can do to reduce the barrier and be able to get them to access the education components more easily.
Thanks. In wrapping up, Hayley, are there any key messages, or what key messages would you like to provide the audience?
I think the key thing is that chronic pain is really complex. It's a really big topic and unfortunately impacts a lot of people at a lot of different levels of their life. And so the more we can do to really educate people on what pain is and be able to give them the chance to be a really independent person in their ongoing recovery journey, the better. And this is just one tool that we have at our disposal. It's not going to be appropriate for everybody, but this is just a new way of doing things, and hopefully being able to give individuals who are experiencing chronic pain the best chance of ongoing success and recovery.
All right, thank you, Hayley. So that brings us to the end of today's WorkSafe Tasmania Month webinar, Virtual Reality and its Application for Assisting Injured Workers with Chronic Pain. And our presenter today has been Hayley Buckhorn from APM WorkCare. Today's webinar is part of WorkSafe Tasmania Month. Please head to worksafe.tas.gov.au to see what other online and in-person events we are running throughout this month in October. WorkSafe Month is an initiative funded by the WorkCover Tasmania Board. Thank you today thank you to our presenter today, Hayley Buckhorn from APM WorkCare, and thank you to everyone for attending.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks all.